Good morning. Welcome in on a chilly morning. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, brought to you by Sound and Communication. SoundcomAV.com, serving you since 1955. And they provide leading-edge audio, visual for businesses, churches, and sports facilities, football fields, baseball fields, gyms, arenas. SoundcomAV.com, top-quality audio, visual from Sound and Communications. We welcome in our friend, Mike Detillier, at Mike Detillier on Twitter, WWL-TV Radio New Orleans. And Mike joins us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Mike D, looking at Ben Roethlisberger and his amazing career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, do you have Big Ben as a first-ballot Hall of Famer?
I think he will be. Now, again, I can't tell you what class, who else will be in there, but I'd be surprised if he didn't get in first ballot. He's had a remarkable career. The negative is, there's some off the field stuff there, but I think he gets in first ballot. He's a big man who was just so difficult to bring down, and he sat in that pocket. Every once in a while he took off, but he was a guy that sat in there and bounced around. And this was about 3 years ago, I guess. We do the Saints coaches show, and Zach Streif is there. And, we talking about Ben, and he's like, man, just remarkable how big a guy he is, how he can throw the football and all. And Zach was like, man, Mike, I'm going to tell you something. I'd hate to play for him. And I'm like, why? He said, because he moves around so much. I'm not real sure. You're trying to block as a lineman. And, and you know where your quarterback is most of the time. He said with Ben, he's pinball. Okay? He pings here, pings here, pings here. And he said, man, it would drive me nuts to block for him. But he said, man, he can wing it. And that was a great send-off for him last night in Pittsburgh. And, you can tell, similar to Drew, he's at the end of the trail as a player. And he knows it. I think we all know it in any profession we're in, that it's time to move on. And for him, he knows it. But, man, he's kept them rolling all those years. He's kept them rolling. And he was quite talented. You can think about the way he could throw a football and people hanging on him, and he could still get rid of it. Remarkable. That's not a lot of guys built like that can do it. I grew up in an era, and I saw guys similar. Roman Gabriel. Roman was like that with the Rams and Eagles, in that he was this big 6'4", 225-pound quarterback, and people hanging. Now, I think Roman could run a little bit better than him, but they have a lot of similar talents as a passer.
All right, so Mike Detillier on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Mike seems to believe that Big Ben will be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Mike, I can't remember. I've asked you before, but I want to hear it again. As far as Drew Brees and Eli Manning, first ballot?
Drew is first ballot. I don't think there's any doubt. He's a first-ballot guy. And you know what? More and more I think about it, because I've talked to different people who vote for it. At first, I thought Eli would maybe not be a first ballot guy, but today I'll probably change my mind on that and say I think he gets in too.
Okay, so all three, you're leaning toward all. Well, Drew's a slam dunk. You feel really good about Big Ben. and you now feel pretty good about Eli all being first ballot Hall of Famers. Is that right?
Yeah, because I just think the game has changed so much, where that quarterback position is so crucial. I think you finding out the value of that. Okay, Eli, you know, the one thing he's got is two Super Bowl titles. Okay, and who he beat to get it. So that is going to weigh heavily. Uh, Listen, I work with a quarterback every day, and one of the things we laugh about, and he laughs about it, but he says, "Mike, you know it's true. Every other position, it's fair that maybe a guy got to sit out maybe 1 year before he gets in, but come on, it's quarterback. We looked at differently, and you know what? Abear's right. He's right about that." Now we talk about other things too, where it's not fair for quarterbacks, but that one, I think he is absolutely right. That position, somewhat somehow, people look at that and say, "Man, if you don't have that, you got no shot."
Yeah.
And I think it helps Roethlisberger and Manning. They're going to get in the NFL Hall of Fame. The question mark is, do you get in year one or year two? And I think the more it goes, the more those guys have a better shot, because we now see the difference if having one and not having one.
Yeah.
And I think Abear is absolutely right about that. It's one of the few things we absolutely agree on. To be honest, that position is looked at differently than any other, and he's right.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, brought to you by Sound and Communications. You're listening to the Out of Bounds show. Blake, you got something? All right. Mike, when you look at what Joe Burrow is doing with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I know you were all over that the year that Joe had a nice year, and then the stars lined up, and Joe had arguably the best year in the history of college football at the quarterback position. He gets hurt, he comes back, he looks amazing with Jamar Chase. I mean, this young man, it could be Burrow and Herbert and a couple of these young guys for years. What do you see as you watch Joe Burrow grow up in front of us?
No, the same cat I saw at LSU. He is a great leader, supremely confident in his skills. He was not braggadocious about it, but he had an air about him that, hey, is anybody going to question me about how good I am? He played with that chip on his shoulder, and if you challenged him, Jack, you were going to get it. I saw him pick fights with defensive players, defensive linemen, and linebackers. Yeah, that's not a lot of quarterbacks wired like that. And you could tell he was the son of a coach and a former player. But he needed somebody that got under his skin a little bit every day. And I worked with a guy for years like that. He had to pick a fight before he was happy. I can't tell you why, but he almost get himself lathered up before he was ready to go, and that was Joe. And if he felt challenged, then you were going to catch holy hell with him. But he is so accurate. He knows where to put the ball in a tight spot. He does not live to fight another day. And that may be the one negative that I see in him. I saw it at LSU. I see it today. He doesn't want to throw the football away to live to fight. Now, I think that eventually may come in time.
Right.
But he thinks every down he's got to make a big play. Everything has got to be a splash play. And we had a little incident, him and I, at Manning camp a few years back. He was just entering his senior year, and he's getting interviewed by a ton of different people. And he comes up to me and he was like, "Hey, coach." He said, "Got to ask you something." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Man, Coach O is always on me about something." He said, "Man, I know you guys grew up together. How can I handle that?" And I said, "What you mean?" I said, "You handle it pretty well." He said, "You guys argue all the time." But I said, everything's good." He said, "Yeah, but come on, tell me the truth." I said, "You know what gets under his skin more than anything? Don't tell him nothing." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Don't tell him a word. Just let him talk and walk away." He said, "Okay." Um, get into the fall practices. This is 2 weeks into it, I guess. And Coach O comes up to me, "Man, Joe is something." And man, he was railing after these receivers that day because they weren't running a right route or whatever. And he comes off the field, and it's man, in the past, man, I'd get on him, and he'd kind of chime back to me. He doesn't say anything anymore. He said, "Man," he said, "I don't know what's wrong with him." Right when he said it, Joe passed, he looked at me and he winked. We both started to laugh, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm being set up. I'm being set up." And that was Joe. He wanted to find out something about you that he could use against you. And he did that for all those years? Peyton Manning. Exact same way. Because Eli would always say it. "Man, listen, look all these guys telling Peyton all kind of stuff." He said, one day he's going to use it against them. He's either going to be some executive or some general manager, and he's going to flip that script on them. Man, don't they know not to tell him a damn word? Because he's somehow going to use it against them. And that was Joe. Tell me something that I can use against you psychologically. And that's how he was. That's how he's wired as a player. And him and Jamar together, and you can see the connection there. How he trusts him, and he knows how gifted Chase is. But man, Joe, from a leadership standpoint, and he's got a certain charisma to him that hasn't he made the Bengals? I'm talking about the Bengals must-watch TV. Think about that. You couldn't have said they'd have put
never
you in
heard
the
that
rubber
before.
room.
Right?
They'd have put you in the rubber room.
Right.
If you'd have said that 5 years ago. That's how good he is. Now, does he have the strongest arm? No. Is he the quickest guy? No. Does sometimes he takes way too many chances? Yes. But man, you put him on the field, and as a competitor, you're not going to find a tougher guy out there. And I'm talking about a guy. If you read Bruce Feldman's book on the 2019 season about LSU, the numerous confrontations he had with teammates, and they respected him. This was his way of motivating you. He wanted you to play as hard as he was playing, just the way he is. He was a once-in-a-lifetime guy to watch in practice because very few guys practice the way they play on a Saturday night or a Sunday. Joe was one of them.
Wow. Well, all right. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. What Sean Payton's doing is unbelievable with this team. They got a shot, Mike, to make it.
Yep.
They don't have enough juice to, really do it. But he and Dennis Allen are unbelievable at what they do. And we'll see what shakes out this weekend. It's like that catch-22, Mike, and you said it to us a couple weeks ago. You were like, in the NFL, people don't lose. They're all too wired, too competitive. So even though they're losing, their draft slot, it is what it is. They're just going to have to go out in free agency, I guess, or go back with Jameis. Handicap that for me, Mike. Does Sean? I know how confident Sean is in his ability on the offensive side of the football. Handicap him giving Jameis one more shot, believing that he can win with anybody, or going into free agency to the Russell Wilson, whatever, Derek Carr, and more sweepstakes.
Yeah, I think it's heavily slotted toward him going out and get a veteran quarterback.
Okay, got it.
I think he has seen enough. I think he knows. Can he win with other people at quarterback? Yeah, but for how much? How much can he win? Sean used to gather all the team up every year, and he had a little comment about there are only really 10 teams playing for all this, for the big marbles every year. The other 22 teams are playing for draft slots, and I don't want to be one of those 22 teams, and neither do you. We're one of the 10 teams that's playing for something. And he could have said that almost every year with Drew. He couldn't have said it this year. I'd like to have been in on that conversation when he said it because he knew he wasn't one of those teams. Despite all the injuries, the COVID situation, uh, everything that has happened to this team, relocating early in the year because of Hurricane Ida, the distractions of all of that, not having number 9, and you still got a shot, man, this is as good a coaching job as you would see with Sean. I thought year 1 was the best. When you had 29 new players on a 53-man roster, you played in the NFC Championship game. Oh, everybody points to '09 in the championship year, but that team was pretty much built over that course of time, over 6, 7, and 8. The thing about that '06 team was that was a 1 year. I'm here. I'm ripping everything apart. I'm getting it down, to the studs, and that's it. We're going to rebuild. And I thought he did an unbelievable job getting that team to the NFC Championship game. I look back at this season with everything that's happened. All you had to do to kind of reset your team in a rebuild year. It was a reload year for the Saints. And with all the injuries, suspensions, COVID, and in the last game, and you got a shot. It's almost as good as that '06 year, based on the talent that's around you. But that defense is really good. Man, they are really, really good. They've only given up 2 touchdowns in the last 16 quarters of play. Think
Good
about that. This is modern
grief.
modern day NFL. They've only given up 2 in 16 quarters. Now, here's the negative. They've only scored 4 touchdowns offensively in 16 quarters.
Goodness gracious.
So there is the yin and the yang to it. But man, when you play in that type defense, you're going to win. You can win a lot of games in the NFL. Now you can't win it all anymore. Those days are gone. You got to have a guy that can make it happen at quarterback. The one thing with Taysom, he has not turned the ball over.
Yeah.
And I think that's the critical part of it. And Sean's redefined how he looks at certain things. How many times in the game against Carolina they were inside the 50-yard line, had a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2? Man, years ago he'd have been ain't punting nothing. We going for it. Didn't do it this time. He punted, played field position, let his defense do it.
I tell you what, Mike.
That's the difference. That's the difference.
No doubt. Mike, let's wrap it up. We didn't get to do quite as much John Madden stuff as we wanted to last week, although we greatly appreciate you coming on Wednesday. I've got about 2 minutes. Is Summerall Madden broadcasting team, are they your number?
That's nothing close. They were the best, and it was music, and it's the soundtrack of our youth, or when we were younger to hear it. I'll tell you a real quick story about Madden from Jimmy Warren. Jimmy went to Court High School in New Orleans, kind of bounced around the AFL with the Chargers, Dolphins. 1970, he gets picked up by Al Davis. He plays 6 seasons with the Raiders. And Jimmy came on. Jimmy passed away in '07, I think. But he came on our throwback show, '03 or '04. And we were talking about Madden, and he said, man, he used to end pregame kind of rah-rah speeches one way. And he was, guys, don't worry about the horse being blind. Just keep loading the wagon. Jimmy's like, I still, I'm in my 50s. He said it this time. I don't know what that means, and I still don't know what it means, but it would get us all fired up. And he said he used it every time for big games, Madden. And he said, I'm not really sure what none of that meant, but he knew that it pressed a button with us. And he said John had 3 rules. Be on time, listen to your coaches on the practice field and in the meeting rooms, and when I tell you to play like hell on Sunday, you do it. He said everything else was off the table. But he said those 3 things you had to do to play for Madden. And he says, remarkable, we ended up as good as we were. But he said that, don't worry about the horse being blind, keep loading the wagon. He said, I have no clue what that meant, but he knew it meant something to us. He said, that's how good Madden was.
Wow. Summerall and Madden. Incredible.
That's no question. It's number one. And
who's your number 2, Mike?
Man, that would be a much tougher question on who's the 2 spot.
Would it be Michaels and Madden, Michaels and Chris Collinsworth?
Well, no, it wouldn't be
Romo.
I would go Michaels and Madden. It wouldn't be Collinsworth. But I would go. Madden's going to be in there. But I think Summerall Madden is just heads and tails above everything. And the guy that pieced that together was at one time the former vice president of the Saints, Terry O'Neill.
You told us that was incredible. You told us that story last week.
Yeah.
Just absolutely amazing putting those 2 guys together and the way the chemistry and it just took off. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Thanks, Mike D. See you next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
NFL Insider, Mike Detillier. Been covering the NFL and the Saints since the mid-'80s. Knows everybody. Unbelievable. The show is brought to you by Sound and Communications. Top quality audio visual from Sound and Communications. Churches, businesses, and yes, sports facilities. SoundcomAV.com. SoundcomAV.com.